Jonathan Ray who leads us, a 1 minute 43 flat, 4/10 of a second faster than top rack Razgatlioglu. Remy Gardner currently rounds out the front row of the grid with Bulliger, Sam Lowes and Spinelli, as you've said, on the second row of the grid. Van der Mark currently P7 alongside Alex Lowes and Andrea Iannone. This is going to be a good lap from Nicolo Bulliger. Pole sitter here in Assen, of course, in Supersport last year, goes provisional pole in the Superbike class. First rider to get below the 1 minute 43s. Jonathan Ray now looking set to answer back. Ray, who, as we've said, 3 times a pole sitter here, took his first WorldSBK pole here in 2010, crosses the line with a 1:42.650. Each time someone displaces Ray, he's going back to the top of the timesheets. Really confident start for him. Now, Alvaro Bautista, critical Superpole session for him. Look at the results from the opening 2 rounds. 9th on the grid in Australia, 11th in Catalonia, and Bautista hadn't qualified off the front 2 rows of the grid in back-to-back rounds since his Honda days. He's in a bit of a Superpole rut at the moment. He needs to dig himself out of it, make his life a little bit easier in the next couple of races. Of course, the next 2 race grids settled here.
Yeah, and as it stands right now, P13 means that there's 4 Ducati riders ahead of him on the grid right now as well, so Bautista needs to make that bit of a step. Van der Mark's just leaving the pits now. We're just hearing from pit lane. He's out there on the wet tyre again, so for Van der Mark, we'll see if he has enough time to be able to use a fresh wet tyre to go out and set a lap time now again.
Scott Redding, 5th on the grid here last season, as good as anything he managed in 2023. It's been a miserable start to this season for him. He promotes himself up onto the 4th row of the grid into P11, so 1:44.5 there from Scott Redding. It is still Jonathan Ray with a 1:42.650 who leads the way. He's backed it off on this particular lap. Razgatlioglu set to improve as he makes his way through the final sector. Sam Lowes has just posted a new personal best. He sits up in 5th position, either side of him, Gardner and Spinelli. So a fair few surprises up towards the top of the field. Likes of Bautista currently down in 15th place, and Dominic Egerter as well down in 19th. Will both expect to improve from there. Bassani goes up to P8. Bulliger on track with him and moves him out of the way rather unceremoniously there into turn 1.
Yeah, and for Bassani, he then needs to try and latch onto the back of Bulliger for the last 2 laps of the session, see if you're able to just find a little bit more in this as well. But good to see Bassani up there on the 3rd row of the grid right now. He's qualified 15th in both of the opening 2 rounds of the year, so needs to make that step in the Superpole session. It's a good opportunity for it.
Lone remaining factory Honda here, making its way off the final turn in the hands of Xavi Vierque. That's going to move him up into 14th position, but continually miserable for Honda this season.
Locatelli there across in 16th, 17th for Bautista, 19th or just 18th position now for Dominic Aguilar. So 16th, 17th and 18th, that's some 6th row of the grid, but it's not where Locke, Aguilar or Bautista need to be.
No, Locatelli in particular, top scoring Yamaha at each of the opening 2 rounds. Only 16 points for him in Catalonia. It was a pretty tough weekend for Yamaha all round, and very much overshadowed there by the resurgent BMWs. But Andrea Locatelli, who's made the 2nd row of the grid in each of his last 2 years here, will expect to make big progress from there, because we know what he can do around this venue. 1 minute 30 to go then in this Superpole session, and at the moment Alex Lowes has just come through to set a new personal best. Sam Lowes immediately follows him, a few tenths of a second between them on the 2nd row of the grid. This is Andrea Iannone down in 12th as things stand, looking to move up onto at least the 3rd row of the grid. He does so. It's P7 for Andrea Iannone, one of only 2 riders to have qualified on the front row of the grid at both rounds so far this season. The other, of course, Nicolo Bulliger, the pole sitter from Australia, who was 2nd at the Catalonia round. Remy Gardner into the final sector now. He's up on his previous best, and Taz McKenzie as well, running strongly. Saw him a couple of moments ago. He currently sits in P10. You'd
see for Van der Mark there, crash down at turn 5. He's got a bit of damage there on the left-hand side of the bike. And for Van der Mark, that's going to be the end of the session for him. So the best he can do is the 3rd row of the grid.
Alvaro Bautista all the way down in 17th position, our most recent Assen pole sitter. And he has now propelled himself up into P8, a 1:43.847. That's much better news for Alvaro Bautista, with only 30 seconds remaining in this session.
Yeah, we're starting in these final laps to see a lot of riders really find something as they start to push on now. So Bautista's got himself up into the top 3 rows of the grid. He's got 1 lap left to try and make another step. Scott Redding we catch up with here as well, trying to move up onto probably the 4th row for Redding, but at least able to put himself into the mix.
This will be the final lap of the session for the likes of Bulliger and Razgatlioglu, and Bulliger is not going to be able to set a competitive lap here. He was out of sorts in sector 1. Razgatlioglu dropping back in Sector 2, 4/10 of a second down, so it does only look as though some riders further down the order might be able to improve. Watch out for Bautista as well. After his first 2 sectors, he's tracking to move up onto the second row of the grid.
Yeah, and also a little bit further down the field, Locatelli still on the 6th row of the grid and trying to find something to be able to make some improvements. He had a crash in this morning's session and he can't afford to qualify down there, 17th position right now. Needs to make progress.
No, not least because top 9 in the Superpole race starts to become a challenge, let alone what you can do in race 1 here this afternoon. So Locatelli 17th, Egerter 18th, both looking to improve. Bautista into the second half of his lap now, as is Xavi Vierke, both looking set to improve. In fact, Vierke in particular seems to be gaining a lot of ground on his previous best. Alex Lowe's has only made his way through the second sector. This is Jonathan Ray who leads the session. 1 minute 42.650 still the time to beat as Ray crosses the line, a few tenths of a second down on that particular lap. Here comes Alvaro Bautista then, down in P8, only off the front row of the grid 3 times in the whole of last season. He's off the front row of the grid again here. Bautista with P7, so up ahead of Iannone and Spinelli. 1:43.730 that time from Alvaro Bautista, over a second slower than Jonathan Ray. What can Michael Ruben Rinaldi do? He's going to be the one to watch now through the final sector as he sits down in 16th position at present. 1.7 seconds down on the fastest time from Jonathan Ray. As we pick up Rinaldi now on the number 21. He's been struggling this season so far. Moto Corsa haven't been able to give him the package with which to fight, but that's much more like it. P8 for Michael Ruben Rinaldi. That brings him onto the 3rd row of the grid at a venue which has been his worst for Superpole performances in each of the last 2 seasons. He was down in 16th on the grid here in 2023. Rinaldi, 16th on the grid last time out at the Catalunya round, fires himself up to P8 and he'll be satisfied with that.